All right, this is your crash course on beginning writing with descriptive writing. We're going to learn about imagery, personification, metaphors, similes, and describing using the five senses. So this video can be for anybody, but it was specifically made for a class where we're doing a makeup day and they have a handout, but I'm going to show the handout if you weren't part of that class and you're just joining us now. You'll be able to follow along. So I'm going to pull that up and we're going to do some reading to demonstrate what we're talking about. So here's a handout, descriptive writing. You've got an example. I've never seen anyone like Brandon. He's so tall, it hurts to look up at him. His legs are like long poles. They stretch up to the sky as if they were the intimidating trees of the redwood forest. So this is a simple paragraph, just a topic sentence, and then 3 supporting sentences. So that's what you have in each of these examples. You're going to fill out these paragraphs here. And so we've got a topic sentence, and then you need to give me 3 examples. Why is your backyard a great place to relax? And then when we're done, we take away the 1, 2, and 3, and we make it a paragraph like this one. So we're not going to do that quite yet. Let's just see. Why is this a topic sentence? I've never seen anyone like Brandon. Okay, so I'm going to describe a guy named Brandon. And the topic sentence for descriptive writing isn't exactly the same as if I'm just giving information, then I'm going to like, this is my topic. But my topic here is the person Brandon, right? So my topic sentence can be anything introducing the person Brandon. But by me saying I've never seen anyone like him, that's already implying that there's going to be some unique things about him that I'm going to hear described to you. And then why is he so unique? Because he's so tall. Okay, so this paragraph I chose just to focus on one thing about Brandon, on his height. And we are employing some different techniques here. So he's so tall, it hurts to look up at him. This is hyperbole. And hyperbole, think of the word hyper. If someone's hyper, they have a lot of energy. And so hyperbole is when we are exaggerating. We're taking something little and making it a lot. So does it actually hurt to look up at him? Like, do I need to go to the chiropractor just because I looked at my friend? Probably not. I'm exaggerating. But with descriptive writing, we're allowed to do that. We're going to portray someone and get a message across, even though we're telling a little bit of a tall tale. His legs are like long poles. When I have this word like, this is the sign that I'm forming a simile. A simile is going to be like something is like this other thing. So his legs aren't actually long poles, but they remind me of long poles. They're tall and skinny like long poles. So they are like long poles. So this is another method of figurative writing. They stretch up to the sky as if they were the intimidating trees of the redwood forest. This is another way to make a simile. So a simile has the words like or as. They're stretching, and again, that's kind of like a hyperbole, like they're not literally stretching, right? They're just there, they're just legs, but I have this creative way to describe the legs. So I'm comparing the legs to long poles, and then I'm comparing them to the trees of the redwood forest. Now, if I just came straight out and I said, his legs are long poles, or his legs are the tall trees of the redwoods, that would be a metaphor. So the only difference between a metaphor and a simile, either way, it's not literally true, right? Either way, you're taking some creative liberties. But a metaphor, you're just going to say it as if it were true. Like, that football player is a rhinoceros, right? He's obviously not a rhinoceros, but what does that mean if I say a football player is a rhinoceros, right? That he has the energy and the strength of a rhinoceros, that you can't get past him, right? He's a beast in that playing field. So, and then if I soften it up a little bit and say, well, he's like a rhinoceros, then that's a simile, right? And then remember the hyperbole. So these are all, these are some different, I'm just gonna list them here. These are some different techniques for descriptive writing. And let's put these in red. Hyperbole is an exaggeration. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, right? You're allowed to do that. A metaphor, comparison, a direct comparison, saying that something is something else. And then a simile is the same thing, sorry, a comparison. It's a softer comparison because you're not saying it is that thing. This is a direct comparison versus a softer comparison. Using the words like or as. All right, and then there's one more that I don't have an example on this page, but I'm going to show you. Personification. Personification. Okay, personification is when we have an object, something that's not human, and then we give it human qualities, right? Like that pizza is calling my name. Pizza can't talk, it can't beckon to you, but we're going to make it, give it a human quality in order to have a creative way to describe it. What am I saying about a pizza if I'm saying it's calling my name? I'm saying that I desire that pizza, it's tantalizing, right? It looks really delicious. So giving human qualities to an object in order to describe it. So all of these methods are just going to describe something and make it sound more interesting, as opposed to a literal description is everything you say, you mean it exactly as it says, right? He's so tall, it hurts to look up at him. Like that means I'm in pain. Like I'm probably not gonna be friends with him because I'm in pain every time I look at him, right? So literal, exactly as it says, versus figurative means there are some creative liberties, which could be any of these ones that we're listing, right? So that's what those words mean. Now we're going to go over and read some examples. Okay, so these are poetry examples. You can do this in essay writing or in poetry. Either way is fantastic. In fact, if any of you want to submit to me a poem instead of an essay, that's fine. Okay, brooms. Is this a poem about brooms? It's a poem about trees, but we're going to say that the trees are brooms. That picture kind of looks like both, right? On stormy days when the wind is high, tall trees are brooms sweeping the sky. They swish their branches in buckets of rain and swash and sweep it blue again. So here, I'll mark this. Here we have this comparison. Tall trees are brooms. So is that a simile or a metaphor? That's, sorry. Okay. That's a metaphor because you're saying they are brooms. If I was saying tall trees are like brooms, see how that's a softer comparison? It's not as direct. So then that would be a simile. Simile has the words like or as. This one just says they are brooms. So that's a metaphor. And what good does it serve here to say that the tall trees are brooms? I mean, couldn't I just say the trees sway in the wind? And they swish their branches. I don't know. I think that would be really boring if I just said the trees are swaying in the wind, and when it rains, they're just kind of swaying in the wind and kind of wiping the rain around. That sounds really boring, right? But if we're creative and we can say the trees are brooms and they sweep the sky, and then when it rains, they're swishing this rain all around. Now I'm imagining windshield wipers. They're sweeping that rain away, and then they're making the sky blue again. Like they're cleaning up the sky. Like that's so interesting. That's so clever to come up with that comparison. This is a really great way to write. All right, now we have a boy getting woken up by his cat licking him. Has that ever happened to you? Cat kisses. Sandpaper kisses on a cheek or a chin. That's the way for a day to begin. Sandpaper kisses, a cuddle, a purr. I have an alarm clock that's covered in fur. All right, so what is a comparison here? You might say a cat's tongue is like sandpaper. It doesn't actually say that, but it's implying that, right? So we're comparing a cat's tongue to sandpaper. And then this last part, I have an alarm clock that's covered with fur. So he's saying my cat is an alarm clock, or my cat is like an alarm clock, because he didn't actually say it either way. This is a kind of a poetry describing it. So I guess I would call that a metaphor because he just says, I have an alarm clock. Like he doesn't say I have something like an alarm clock, right? So the cat literally does wake him up in the morning. So he's calling his cat an alarm clock. So that's a metaphor. And that's a really interesting way to set up that metaphor, right? I mean, if it had like a silky kiss, maybe it wouldn't wake you up so much. But an alarm clock with its glaring, it's like sandpaper, right? It's like, oh, get that off me. That's not a gradual way to wake up. These were just some examples of simile. My dog's breath is like a rotten kiwi. This is what my students submitted to me in our class. My friend's hair is like a rat's nest. She is as smart as a cat. Remember, we want the word like or as. He is as strong as Hercules. He is as weak as a puny twig buckling under the gust of wind. She is as sly as a fly. He is so brave. He is like a proud, defiant lion. All right, now let's do personification. The wind whispered is an example of giving human qualities to an object, the wind, right? Okay, this is personification, the hungry waves. The hungry waves along the shore chase each other with a roar. They raise their heads and wide and high, they toss their hair against the sky. They show their teeth in rows of white and open up their jaws to bite. All right, so let's take a look at this. What do the waves do that they can't literally do, but it's something humans do, and it is describing them in a more creative way? Chasing each other, right? Are the waves actually chasing each other? They're just responding to the moon's gravity. So I don't think they're chasing each other. But does it seem like they're chasing each other when one comes and then the next one and then the next one, right? So they looked out there and they were like, it seems like they're chasing. So this writer got this idea, and Dorothy Aldous is the writer of most of these poems. So let's give her some credit for being really, really clever. And then with a roar, okay? So just ascribing a sound to the waves. I mean, that's more of like a lion or a tiger sound, but I think it still counts for personification because it's figurative language, right? They're not actually roaring. So whenever you're saying something that's not literal, it's probably going to fall within one of these categories. They raise their heads. Okay, do they have heads literally? And wide and high, they toss their hair against the sky. Okay, they also don't really have hair. So there's all sorts of elements here. They show their teeth in rows of white and open their jaws to bite. Now that is super, super clever. Okay, because you know how the water is blue and then when the wave is coming, it turns into white. So it's like they have opened their mouth and they're showing you their teeth. And then it kind of comes up and then goes back down. So it's like they open their jaws. Are they going to take you in? Are they going to eat you? Right? So that's what Dorothy thought. One day she was sitting on the beach and she was watching these waves and she was like, how interesting that they have this roaring sound. And maybe it's kind of like they're chasing each other. And then they're lifting up their heads and then they open their mouth to bite and they're showing their teeth because I'm seeing this row of white. So she caught all these things. I would love for you guys to just like kind of sit outside and watch something and then think of how would you call that in human words? How would you describe it? All right, and then we have my shadows is our last one. This is our last one. Let's make it bigger. All right, I love this cute little poem. Robert Louis Stevenson is a really popular writer. He's written books like Treasure Island, I think, and Jekyll and Hyde, which is one of my favorite books. And now he wrote a kid's poem, which is really, really clever. I love this one. All right, I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me. And what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He's very, very like me from the heels up to my head. And I see him jump before me when I jump into bed. So you can see how he's painting this picture. This shadow is a person, right? It's an independent person who the writer, the character here, has a relationship with. So we don't know the use of him, but he is very much like me. And when I jump into bed, I see him go before me, right? So the light must be behind him and the shadows hitting the bed first. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow. Not at all like proper children, which is always very slow, for he sometimes shoots up taller like an India rubber ball. Oh, there's a simile right there. Did you catch that? He shoots up like a ball, and he sometimes goes so little that there's none of him at all. So isn't that so cute? Shadows can be really big, and then you just move the light, and then suddenly they're little, right? So he doesn't grow like proper children. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play. A notion means an idea or an understanding. He can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. So he doesn't play the normal way that children play. And now he feels like the shadow's making a fool of him. He stays so close behind me. He's a coward. You can see. Oh, wait, there's personification. If the shadow is a coward, that's a human quality. I'd think shame to stick to Nursey as that shadow sticks to me. So if I were sticking to somebody like that, I would be so embarrassed, right? A Nursey is like your nanny, your babysitter. And so think of a little kid being so shy and like sticking right behind his mom or his babysitter and not having the courage to go on his own and play with the other kids, right? So that's what the shadow is being like. One morning, very early, before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errant sleepy head, errant means a total sleepy head, outright lazy, right? He had stayed at home behind me and he was fast asleep in bed. So we have lots of different things about the shadow. We've got, sometimes he's in front of us, so it looks like he's going before us. And then we have the funny way that they can be big or small. And then we have how the shadow is like sticking to us, it's always underneath our feet. So he's a coward. And then we have, he's so lazy. That's another personification. He's staying in bed because he never woke up. This was before the sun was up, right? So he goes out in the early morning. There's some light so he can see the dew, but there's not enough sun to create a shadow. So it's like the shadow is still back home stuck in bed. So I thought that was a super cute poem. Okay, let's go back to our paper now. My backyard, let's make this bigger. Now we need to think of some things to say for this. I'm going to show you some examples. I've got, let's see, I'll do a couple of them. Maybe I'll give you a minute before I put mine up there. And then if you can't think of anything, I'm going to show you mine. So what can you say about your backyard? Why is it a great place to relax? My backyard is like a beach. My backyard is a forest. And then, okay, another way I forgot to say, another way to use descriptive language is just to describe it using your 5 senses. So what do you hear in your backyard? It's so relaxing when I can just lay there and hear the birds chirping. What do you see in your backyard? I'm surrounded by a dense wall of trees. I'm surrounded by butterflies and caterpillars, right? Do you smell anything in your backyard? The aroma of flowers floats throughout my backyard, and I just love relaxing and being in that space. This doesn't have to be your actual backyard, by the way. If you're not inspired by your own backyard, then just make something up. What are you inspired by? What kind of a backyard would you love to have? Go ahead and pause this video if you've got paper in front of you and you want to go ahead and write your own. And now I'm going to think of what I would say in my backyard. I have a hammock in my backyard. My kids put up bunk bed hammocks. So we have 2 trees and a lower hammock and then a high hammock. Lying in my hammock, all my worries melt away. All right. Now this is interesting. My worries melt away. That's not exactly personification because humans don't melt, except for like the Wicked Witch of the East, right? Which one? Wicked Witch of the West. But worries don't melt either. So it's not literal. There is a figurative expression here. And maybe it doesn't fit real neat and clean inside one of those categories. But I would just say personification, even though humans don't melt. Or it's like ice cubification. So sometimes I would even say, like, don't worry if you can name the element you're using. You know, if you don't know the difference between a metaphor and a simile, but you can use them in your writing, that's what matters, right? Like when someone sells a book and they're a well-known writer, they describe things so well. They have a great way to use words. Doesn't matter if they know exactly what everything's called. They don't have to pass a test. They just have to sell a book. So if their writing is interesting and clever and creative, then they're a great writer and it will sell. That's more important than actually memorizing all the correct terminology, right? So in my classes, I really want to get you just writing. Don't feel the pressure that you have to memorize anything. The trees surround me like, what's something that surrounds me? Soothing friends. Let's say I'm lonely and I want to be surrounded with my friends. And I did not need a comma there. The trees surround me like soothing friends. And then we have, there's also a pond. I'm imagining this because I don't actually have a pond in my backyard that trickles slowly and continuously. So this one is more my five senses. I'm thinking about that trickling sound. I could even add another sentence here. If you have more to say, go ahead and put more sentences, right? The minimum is 3 sentences. So when you're just learning how to write, I try to get you to do 3. But if you're more advanced than that, go ahead and add some more. I love to listen to that calming, steady sound. All right. And then one more thing is I want to add a 5th sentence at the end, a final sentence. Like on this one, I didn't have one. I could just be like, he's a giant. And that again is a metaphor. He's not actually a giant. We're just saying he's a giant. Okay, what's the final sentence that I could put at the end of this? Remember, I call this a sprinkle. It's like you're making a recipe, you're building a cupcake, and now you have to put a sprinkle on top just to be like, the end, wrap it all up. I love to be in my yard. And usually, usually there's like an exclamation point at the end, just because it's cute, it makes it a little bit cheesy, but then your reader definitely knows that you're done, right? So the whole point of this is wrap it all up, put a bow on it, let your reader know that you're done. The sunset today was beautiful. Okay, go ahead and pause the video so that you can come up with something to say on this one. All right, let's describe that sunset. What were the colors like? And can we, instead of just saying, like if they are orange, red, and pink, how can we say that better? There was bright orange. What kind of red? Red like a fire? Red like a fire, or just fiery red, and passionate pink. And let's do a simile. It was like, what is a sunset like? It was like an explosion. And that's a lot of exclamation points. Let's not do both of them. Sometimes you got to choose. Did it create some sort of effect in you? The sight made my heart swell. All right, and then one more sentence to wrap it all up. What an amazing sight. All right, see what I'm doing there? Okay, now this is your challenge. Write these 2 last sentences. We got a new pet something. Now you can describe a pet. And then my favorite place, maybe a place you've been on vacation. Describe the sights, sounds, smells, tastes. Say it was as exciting as a birthday or whatever, right? Something that's really exciting. It was as glorious as heaven, right? Like just come up with some things. It's like what? So maybe just brainstorm at first. What do I want to compare this to? So I would like to invite you guys to write your own paragraphs, and then you are going to send it to me. Let me just give you my email address here. When you're in my classes, you just send me your homework in email, and then I will write back to you. So anyone who's watching this video is welcome to contact me, give me one of these paragraphs, or if you'd like to take the challenge to write a poem, like one of those examples we read. If you want to make a paragraph longer and do it more of an essay, a descriptive essay is probably just a few paragraphs at most. It's different from a 5-paragraph essay. I guess you could follow that form if you were describing something more in depth. Like if you're describing Hawaii, maybe you would take a paragraph about the mountains and a paragraph about the water or the animals, or a paragraph about the food, right? So you could do that. That's not typically how students are assigned. I'd like to offer you guys some flexibility. All right. So you're gonna email me your writing so I can give you some feedback, annalisejones@gmail.com. All right. And then let me tell you about my classes. The website is lucialearning.com. And let me just show you the website actually. Nope, I don't want to log into it. So here's a website. You can read about my philosophy if you scroll down here. But let's go over to programs. And then programs, I offer tutoring or classes. So let's go to classes. And here you can see this is what the schedule currently looks like. There's going to be some modifications to this soon. You can click here to sign up. There's a form. Nope, that wasn't it. Oh, that's the class descriptions. Sign up using this form. There's the form. So let me tell you about my classes. The content we covered today will be covered in beginning literature. I can annotate this. And then beginning writing. So I split the beginning writing up between younger kids and older kids so that you can have some more closer to your peer group. Now, if this was really simple and easy for you, then I would recommend doing essay writing. In essay writing, we're going to cover descriptive writing, more of that, plus the other types, persuasive, expository, narrative. And then in the spring, we'll learn more about doing research and citations. So that will all be covered in essay writing. But those classes are only writing, right? So if you liked how we read the poetry and the literature, you need to do a literature class or a language arts class. If you're coming to the language arts classes, we will cover the poetry, the stories, and some novel discussions. And then we'll write essays, maybe write some poems or creative writing stories, right? So this is your full language arts class that's going to cover everything. Either way, both of these classes, either the full language arts or the writing, you will cover grammar, spelling, sentence diagramming. So it's just whether or not you want the literature included in the class. So I offered at the beginning level, I have them separate because, well, for the kids who are younger, a lot of them can't handle a Zoom class for longer than an hour. That's the main reason they're separate. Also because sometimes I get people who want to do, they want to do middle school level novels. So they want to do this, but they need to keep working on their writing. So if they do both of these, it allows them some extra help with their writing. And then they're able to still do the reading at their own level and be around peers for their reading. And it's really good for the middle school level for these tweens and teens to have peers to discuss books with. The books are more inspiring when you're able to do a discussion, and it's not just reading for fun and just seeing whatever you get from it. In a discussion, you can get a lot more out of it because other people will point things out that you didn't see. And then I assign an essay topic on the book where you're going to find lessons in the book and apply it to your life. Or examine the characters and see, were they good guys, bad guys? Did they make good choices? At what point did they maybe hinge and become a bad guy? You know, like when does Anakin go from being a good guy to a bad guy? So that's a whole essay topic. How can you live a good life and make sure that's not gonna happen to you, right? So we really like applying these stories in the literature to ourselves. And that's what I do in my classes. Any other questions, just contact me and let me know. I also teach math at Paper Plane, as well as you can see these other subjects, finance, leadership, and personal development, and then psychology. I am also willing to teach classes in your homes. If you can get a group together and you're fairly close to me in Salt Lake County or the northern part of Utah County, then I can come to you, get a group together, and you can hire me to come be a teacher in person. So just reach out to me. I'm pretty flexible, and I just like to meet the needs and support families wherever you're at. And that's it. So thank you for coming to this little class today. Go ahead and submit your papers to me or talk to me and let me know what you need. And just follow me on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll be putting out a lot more great content. So I'll see you then. Thanks.